Krista, thank you for joining the Pulling Focus podcast. We're really happy to have another guest on, and somebody who's essentially our neighbor right around the corner. So first things first, I'd love to get a quick introduction of you, your role, and a little bit about First Flight Venture Center, and then we can go from there.
Sounds great. Well, thank you so much for having me. So I'm the president of First Flight Venture Center. I joined First Flight in 2020 at the height of the pandemic. And we're an innovation hub. So we serve innovators and entrepreneurs that are out to change the world for good. And we provide different programs from, I have an idea, what do I do next, all the way through commercial success. And we focus on what we call high science, high tech, high impact startup companies. So science is extremely broad. We are an RTP. And so that means, life science, bio, but also material sciences, ag is involved. There's a lot of, clean tech, hardware, software, you name it. Anything that has the high science, high tech focus. We work with those types of founders. And then impact. So truly founders that are out to change the world for good, solving big problems. And we have a physical space in RTP. So we've got 25,000 square feet of space full of offices and labs. So 32 offices, 32 labs. And it's so much more than just a physical space. It's a community of support. So we've got traditionally 30 to 40 resident companies at any given time, and founders that are at different stages. Ultimately, the goal is to have founders and companies graduate from First Flight. So we've had over 400 graduate companies in the past 3 decades, and we plan to do more. So in addition to the resident companies, we serve hundreds of companies across North Carolina and even beyond every single year. So in 2020, we had over 700 companies that we served.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's incredible. I mean, a long legacy of helping and incubating companies in the state. You mentioned that you joined in 2020. What was it like with that experience? Were people in the space? Were people did the model change of how you approached just helping develop these companies? I'm just curious about how that looked.
Oh yeah, so there was a great opportunity for learning.
Yeah.
So it was interesting because the world kind of shut down. However, because we're working with so many science-based companies, that they need the labs, they need the space to continue your work. You can't stop science, right? You can't shut down a lab and just say, okay, we're done for the day. Well, you've got experiments, you've got things happening.
Sure.
So First Flight really became this safe place to continue the work, to solve big challenges in the world, but also that community. So we were, what is it? I can't remember we're an essential business.
Essential business.
Yes,
yeah.
we are an essential business, which is really helpful. So we still had folks, masked up, and of course we had to abide by protocols, but they were still able to see other humans, have those interactions, which are so valuable, especially because starting and running a company can be lonely, especially if you're a solo founder. So that was First Flight was a really special, but also really critical place for the work to continue. And then we also found that most of the programming that we were offering needed to be virtual. So that was a time for me, kind of stepping into this new role in this new location to really do an assessment. What are we doing really well? Where are the gaps? What are the opportunities? And we can use this time when we're in the office, we're not going out and about. I can't interact as much as I'd like to in the community, so let's focus on within and kind of sweep the house from inside out. And we figured, we did an assessment, kind of understood where the gaps are, and we built programs to fill in the gaps so we can better serve our innovators and entrepreneurs on their journey to success.
Yeah, that's fantastic that people were still able to continue their experiments and just the important work that they had to do.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there was a lot of like newness, like we all experienced.
Yes.
But before that, just to back up a little bit, you mentioned something about wanting to be a lion tamer in your past life.
Yes.
But tell me a little bit about how you got to First Flight. So what led you there, and what was it about the Venture Center that drew you to want to take the helm?
So I'll try not to be too long here, but to get to the point of being a lion tamer, which is absolutely true. Nobody really goes to school for being an ecosystem builder or for running innovation hubs, right? That's not a career path you normally think of. So most folks that do the work that I do or similar work that I do kind of fell into it or saw the need for it and kind of created their own path. So my path looks like, when I was younger, I did want to be a lion tamer. I wanted to be an attorney. I wanted to be, all sorts of, a nurse. I wanted to be, a businesswoman. So, what I didn't realize then, but I know now, is that I was an entrepreneur at heart. I wanted to do a lot of different things. I wanted to solve big problems and change the world, bring value. And so my path led me to figuring that out through, my undergrad was in business and marketing, and then I went right into finance. And I started my own company. So I had a company that did correspondent lending. And thankfully, we exited right before the recession, which was really good. And then I went into banking after that. This was, again, during the really difficult time. I was in Florida, and I did corporate and commercial lending. So I was working with a lot of companies that were in the housing industry, right? So they were doing floor coverings or something like that. They had a lot of employees, and the recession hit them really hard. And so I was looking for ways to support these companies and these founders and help them, maintain sustainability and not have to lay off everybody, right? Not have to close down. And so I looked towards the local economic development organization as a tool in my tool belt to help them continue to grow. And so I loved it. I loved economic development. I loved working with entrepreneurs. And so it was really all about finding my passion, what I love to do, and also what I didn't love to do, which was, at the time I was working 100-hour work weeks at a bank. That was not fun. I knew that was not sustainable for me. But I really fell into my passion, which was supporting innovators and entrepreneurs on their journey to success.
Yeah, I can very much see the connection between that and what you're doing now. And so one of the things I'm curious about is you mentioned lots of companies that you've helped. Are there any that stand out maybe before you arrived that were just exciting success stories that you heard? And then on the flip side of that, since you've been in charge, have there been any success stories or companies that really stick out that you'd like to share about?
So when I first joined, again, I was in 2020. I really enjoyed working with a new resident company, which was Nala Membranes. Sue and Judy were the founders, their mother-daughter team. And, Sue and I got to know each other, Sue Meekum, and she had asked me to review her pitch deck, and she wanted to practice her pitch. So I love that stuff, right? So I'm like, yes, of course. That's what we're here to do. And to give you some context, so Nala Membranes creates water filters for large reverse osmosis systems in industrial settings. So they actually purify water. And these filters are unique because they're chlorine tolerant membranes or filters. So this is, in that industry, it's revolutionary, right? This is a game changer for reverse osmosis and for water purification. And Judy and Sue came up with this technology. They're polymer chemists and wanted to take this new science and technology to market, create a company around it, create value, and solve this big challenge. And so I had the pleasure of working with them, when they were very small. It was just, a small team all the way through to their graduation. So they eventually, left First Flight the end of last year. They occupy their, I think it's like 11 or 12,000 square feet of space. They've hired a bunch of people. They have lots of equipment. They're doing all the right things.
Yeah.
And so I get the honor and privilege of seeing them and supporting them on their entrepreneurial journey. But I'd say that's one that I saw when I was, right on board at First Flight.
That's exciting and a really, really cool story. Are they still in the area? Like
they
around
are.
Here? That's fun.
Oh, yes. And so, I see Sue quite a bit at different events.
Sure.
Most recently at CED and the Clean Tech Cluster event. And again, it's First Flight is, we have the physical space, we have the programs, but it's really a community. So I like to say, once you're in the First Flight family, you're always in the First Flight family.
Yeah.
First Flight is all about collaboration and community and serving entrepreneurs, but at different stages from the beginning, right? I have this idea. I think I can bring value to the world to, I am a commercial success. I have my own sustainable business. Maybe I'm looking at an acquisition. Maybe whatever the case may be, whatever success looks like, and it looks different for each company.
Yeah.
But that's the purpose and the intent of First Flight is to create more of those types of companies.
That's so exciting. I was just at Triangle Biotech Tuesdays?
Yes.
Tuesdays.
Yes.
Not Thursdays. And it just seems like from the 4 or 5 years I've been in the area that everyone is very much open just to helping others succeed. And there's just lots of like this almost community-based approach to business, especially in RTP. And I think that's really interesting that you all get to be on the front end of some of that too, of people just getting started. And what an amazing network of people. Have there ever been times where you've worked with one company and maybe they've graduated and another company starts and you're able to help connect the dots of how this company might be able to help them or a certain resource they have? Like, have there been
That
any?
happens all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And so how much are you interacting with these companies on a day-to-day?
So I would say, I get to be in the facility with 30 to 40 resident companies, but I'm very involved in a lot of the programming.
Sure.
But I do have program managers and directors that are working with the companies day to day, facilitating programming, facilitating conversations. I love that part of the work. I mean, in my role, of course, I have to be a little bit, more on the strategic and the back end side. So I don't get to work with the founders as often as I used to.
Yeah.
But I love it. That is definitely part of my warm and fuzzies
Right.
that I get out of life is, and again, it's being in this community, I get to celebrate their successes with them, right? So I get to be this observer and supporter and, facilitator of resources. And when they come back to me and say, Krista, I just got my first customer. I did this, met this huge milestone. Boy, that makes my day. That makes my whole week, right? That's the warm and fuzzy that I can't wait to experience every single day.
Yeah, and we touched on this very briefly before we went live of advice you would give to someone starting something.
Yeah.
And the more we've spoken in the past 10 minutes or so, the more I'm seeing how this would play out every day for you. But I'd love to hear just that advice that you would give if someone has like a really good idea and wants to start something. Yeah.
So I was saying that I had a great professor. I was an ethics professor when I was in college in my undergrad, and he gave some advice to the class, and it was figure out what it is you love to do and do it so well you get paid to do it. And so that has absolutely been a mantra of mine my whole career. And on top of that, just kind of expanding that message, it's also figuring out what you don't want to do. So going back to the lion tamers, right? I wanted to do all sorts of crazy things, including, being an attorney, but then I figured out the paperwork that's involved, so I wasn't about that. The lion taming, well, not a whole lot of opportunities for someone like me in that business. So kind of glad I steered clear of that. I wanted to do a lot of different things, but I've truly found the work that I do is so meaningful and so rewarding to me personally, and my job is to do that work so well that I've been able to support myself and my family through that work, and my community. And I think that I have 2 daughters. I hope that I can impart that wisdom and example to them as well. I want them to figure out what it is they love to do, and also what they don't like to do, so that they can be fulfilled in whatever that means, or whatever that is, in their future.
Yeah, I love whenever I talk to Ryan and Will, the 2 owners and founders of our company, I can just tell when they're talking, especially like when Ryan talks about camera gear and more like tactical things, and when Will talks about all the places he's been filming BMX, like they just light up, and it's really I forget the word is slipping my mind, but it's engaging. You can tell when somebody really loves doing something. It's not just like a job, and it's not just something they're doing for money, and that's, I think, inspiring too when you're around people like that. And I'm sure for you're around a lot of those people. One of the things you also mentioned was just the importance of putting a good team around you. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that, of maybe somebody's got a great idea and just getting started. How important is it to build a good team?
I think it's critical, especially as a founder and entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship is not a siloed sport; it's a team sport.
Yeah.
And you can't be great at everything, right? And so again, that goes back to figuring out what it is you like to do, what you're good at, what you're talented at, and also what you're not good at, and filling in the gaps. And I can say that I have the best team at the world at First Flight, not only from the staff, but also from the board perspective as well. So we're a 501c3 nonprofit. And when I joined, I was interviewing for First Flight. The heart of the board resonated in our meetings. I felt that they were there because they cared about the future of North Carolina. They cared about the future of innovators that are solving big problems. They wanted to be there to support this ecosystem. So there was the heart. I also saw that resonating with my team. So the work is wonderful and challenging, and you have to have the heart to serve in order to have any type of longevity in ecosystem building and running innovation centers. So I couldn't do the work that I do without a great team behind me. And then the founders that we serve, it's the same thing over and over again. You have to have a solid team. And you have to figure out the folks on your team who's good at doing what, right? And put them in a position for success ultimately.
Yeah.
And if somebody is not in a position where they're being successful, maybe there's some coaching opportunities, right? Or maybe they're just unhappy in that role. Maybe they need to figure out something else as well. But ultimately, it's again, figuring out what it is you're good at and what you enjoy doing so that you can be as successful as possible.
Yeah, it's really good insight, especially on, I think there's a unique power to somebody who is both motivated and excited about the work that they're doing, and how that, affects other people around them as well.
I do have another comment too
Yeah,
on
go for it.
So we work with a lot of founders that are looking for investment, right? And from early seed stage, we work with a lot of angel investors, venture capital, and then a lot of federal funding opportunities. But for the angel investors, and actually I was at an RTP Capital meeting last evening, over and over again, and I've been in a million different pitches and all of that, over and over again, you'll hear the investor say, I'm investing in the team. I'm investing in, the founder because I like you, I believe in you, I trust you. So that can be critical to the success of a company if you've built trust and you've built the right team. So just to
that's a really good point.
Reinforce that.
It's not enough just to have a home run idea.
No.
And it's the people that are put around that idea.
That's right.
That help it succeed. So I'm going to ask you to pitch North Carolina for somebody who is wanting to, especially in the science-based realm. Why North Carolina as a good place to start, and specifically why the Triangle?
So as someone who's come from, most recently I was in San Antonio, Texas, and then before that I was in Florida, in Central Florida. North Carolina, and particularly the Research Triangle Park, is well known for being a science hub, especially in the life sciences. The talent here is bar none. The opportunities for getting access to the right equipment, even though, sometimes you don't think about that, but having CROs, we've got, I think as many CROs here, or as there are in other, like the Bostons and the California, San Francisco, San Diego area. So having access to those resources to build your startup company, especially in the life science company, is critical. We have the talent, we have mentors that have been there and done it. They've been, I can speak to First Flight. We've got some of the best mentors in the world. They are successful innovators and entrepreneurs. Most of them have been in the area for quite some time. They have a lot of heart to serve, so they give back and help the next generation of innovators and entrepreneurs through their journey. So I've seen that. I see that every day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty exciting. And then, of course, the collaboration that is here is also like nowhere else I've been.
Yeah.
So just the willingness for people to work together. We started something called the Triangle ESO in 2020. Again, this is, during the height of the pandemic. It was a virtual group of entrepreneur support organizations that wanted to work together for the betterment of the ecosystem. So incubator managers, accelerators, funds, economic developers, we all got together, said, how can we work together better? It's sort of the rising tide floats all the boat mentality, right? And so that is special. That is unique for the Triangle. So I'd say that is that's a unique and special part of North Carolina and RTP in particular.
Yeah, I was going to ask, why do you think that is? That's something I've noticed. I'm originally from the DC area, and it is stuff like that is happening there, but it's just so fast paced, and there's just a lot going on. And it seems like it's so prevalent here of just this collaboration and people wanting to help each other and people creating these groups and organizations like this to share insight and just kind of raise each other up. Why do you feel like that's happening here? And then it may not be just one thing, but
and I don't think I have the perfect answer or maybe the right answer, but what I've observed is that First Flight's been around for 3 decades, but in order for First Flight to even exist, there were folks from the state, from the Department of Commerce, that were very forward thinking years and years ago. So at the beginning, there were both private and public groups coming together for the Research Triangle Park, in the 50s and 60s when it finally happened. So this is a long play. This is not something that happens overnight.
Sure.
It's different groups, different stakeholders coming together with a common goal for the betterment of North Carolina, for the betterment of solving big challenges for the world through the Research Triangle Park. And its willingness, you've got the 3 R1 universities, and you've got all sorts of other HBCUs and other educational institutions that are willing to work together to help spur innovation and entrepreneurship. So I think it's been a culture that has happened over decades, and it keeps getting better and better and better. First Flight, originally, this is kind of interesting. We were, in the 80s, the Triangle University Computational Center. So we actually held a mainframe computer.
Oh, wow.
So I've got really, First Flight's like a bunker. So
Yeah.
I've got some of the labs have 18-inch thick rebar enforced concrete walls. So imagine trying to drill through that to install a new fume hood. It's a nightmare. But it was designed to hold a mainframe computer, right? And to be that safe place.
Sure.
But it was for Duke, UNC, NC State, and all the punch card information would go to First Flight. Well, then in the 90s, that, nobody needed the mainframe computer anymore. Everyone was getting their own computer, so that changed. And so it's part of that evolution. It's part of the pivoting. It's part of keeping up with what is needed. And after that, that's where First Flight spun out of the Department of Commerce, really, from the Technical Development Authority to First Flight and who we are today. So again, it's this being able to pivot, being able to be flexible, but it's a long game. It doesn't happen overnight.
And just how you all have been ingrained in the history of the Triangle and how it's just grown around you must just be really exciting, and kind of leads me to my next question, which is, what gets you excited about what's next? I ask everyone this, like, what's next in the story of fill in the blank? So for First Flight, where are you headed? What's kind of in the near term, and then where do you hope things to either change to or continue going in the future, in the long term?
Yeah, so one of the big strategic initiatives was building out the programming. And so I talked earlier about filling in the gaps. So we have done that. We've created programs at different levels depending on the entrepreneur's journey. But the big opportunity that's next is a new building.
Cool.
So we've been traditionally at capacity for our incubator program. We've got 32 offices, 32 labs, and 25,000 square feet of space. We want to at least double that.
Wow.
We actually have 9 acres in the park. We're on Davis Drive in Cornwallis, which is a great location. RTI, IBM, Alexandria is our neighbors. But we've got a building in the works. So we're looking at, over 135,000 square feet of space to continue to serve more innovators and entrepreneurs. So we want to continue the work that's happened over the past, 3 decades and make sure that we're successful and sustainable for the next 30 years. So that's a big part of what's next for First Flight.
That's really exciting. How soon will that building be completed?
Just as soon as we can get through the permitting process and all of that. So it doesn't, again, that doesn't happen overnight, but I've got a great board we have a real estate committee. We're working with developers right now, and we've got the plans in place. In fact, if you come visit First Flight, we've got these beautiful renderings on the wall that were done by flat architects. So you can kind of see what's next.
Cool.
It's pretty exciting.
So if somebody wanted to learn more about First Flight, or even if they are interested in working with you all, what should they do? Where should they go? Who should they contact? Yeah,
so we have a website, ffvcnc.org, so First Flight Venture Center, North Carolina.org. A lot of our information is there. We have events happening all the time. Usually they're open to everyone. So that's a great way to get plugged in. Of course, anyone can call us, 919-990-8558, or email me directly, Covey@ffvcnc.org, and I'm happy to get everyone plugged in. So, and then we are in the process of refreshing our brand right now. So our website, bear with us, is transitioning from, the old logo and the old colors to our new refreshed design. So bear with us, because it's, as it becomes the beautiful butterfly.
Sure. That's exciting. Well, Krista, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. And I hope folks hearing this have learned a thing or two. And I just want to say thanks for your time. And if there's any questions that people have, I would suggest they reach out. But apart from that, hope you have a great weekend. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
All right.